What's the funniest thing that ever happened in a courtroom?
In the courtroom?
Not necessarily just this trial, but in a courtroom, what's the funniest thing that ever happened?
Oh, well, I think this trial had a lot of examples of that. I mean, everything from Johnny using his sense of humor and showing everyone his legal knowledge. He would object to questions before we would, or he would say, "Oh gosh, what I'm about to say is that must be hearsay." I mean, there were some really funny moments. There were some interesting witnesses, not to name any names, but there was one in particular, the other side, an expert that was bizarre and comical, but yeah, I mean, there were some really funny moments, and of course some inside jokes that we all shared. I mean,
Right.
I'll let Ben share this one, but Ben, we got a mascot, right? That was our team mascot. And let's just put it this way: our team mascot infiltrated the other side's closing arguments. I'll let Ben explain that, though.
Ben, please, I got to know what that's about.
Well, the alpaca, shortly after the op-ed, Ms. Heard's op-ed was published, Disney let it be known that they were dismissing him from Pirates of the Caribbean. A reporter called Johnny or accosted him and said, "Would you ever come back to Disney if they apologized to you?" And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, "Not for $200 million and 100 million alpacas." So one of his fans each day brought to trial, didn't get into the courtroom, but outside the courtroom brought 2 comfort alpacas. Now, I never knew that there was such a thing as a comfort alpaca, but apparently there are.
I'm just learning that now. So
it was, it became the mascot of the trial. And someone gave me a miniature alpaca, which I had in my pocket during an argument. And the judge's senior law clerk said to me during the break, "You had an alpaca in your pocket." Said to her, "I hope you didn't rat me out to your boss." And she said, I didn't, but you really should be careful next time. So what Camille was alluding to is we had, for closing argument, the way the courtroom was situated, there was an enormous lectern that was about a mile away from the jury. And I had used that for opening because I didn't have Camille's courage. Camille went right in front of the jury, which is the way you're supposed to do it. But I knew that was not workable for closing, which we were going to split. And because we were so busy, we couldn't memorize the closing. We had the dilemma. Do we want to be before the jury just with a big stack of notes, which is kind of awkward, or do we want to, seek protection behind the big podium, which would look like we were afraid and not believing in ourselves? So I found a tiny little podium that had belonged to my mother. It was an encyclopedia holder. So I found that, I brought it in, and I put the little alpaca in the little drawer for good luck. So Camille and I both used the podium to our great advantage. And then, unfortunately, one of Miss Heard's lead counsel, Ben Rottenborn, he took advantage of it. Before I could take the podium away and force him to make that Hobson's choice, he seized the podium. And to my horror, he used it to great effect. And to throw him off during a break, I said, "There's an alpaca in there." And he gave me stink eye. So we had a little humor there. But as Camille said, there were Johnny had some great lines in his direct that we hadn't anticipated, that were just quite, when the other side would say, "Well, did I read that correctly?" He would really undercut it by saying, "You read that quite well, Mr. Rottenborn." So he was able to disarm opposing counsel without being snarky or without being disrespectful, which, as you know, is not what you want your witnesses to be.